Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options in Play video update. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. This is what we're calling the state of the market or the state of the tape. Uh, when we get these pullbacks, which you're seeing in the overall market, it creates a lot of opportunities. But really, the best action tends to follow news, and so we're going to talk about what the game plan is into this dip, like what we're watching and basically why we're watching it. So momentum can change on a dime in this market. I mean, anybody that's been trading a while uh, definitely realizes that. And what had been just like this really beautiful, strong uptrend, all of a sudden in the last basically since last Wednesday, it has changed pretty dramatically. I mean, just really consistent, steady selling, just lower lows, lower highs each of the past five sessions. So, I mean, since topping out on Wednesday, I mean, you can see just really, really steady, uh, consistent lower highs, lower lows, coming into moving averages. We blew through the 8 EMA, and now we're coming into the 20. And I mean, there wasn't specifically a reason. I mean, maybe just some exhaustion. Had a really nice run, finally starting to pull back. Uh, the steady selling uh, seems to indicate that maybe we haven't exhausted all of like that pent up overbought condition. So we'll be watching it. Um, Basically though, as tech goes in this tape, so go like the averages and big caps are under some pressure. So Amazon hit 1 trillion and now it's pulled back. Google's under pressure. The past 5 sessions, Facebook rolling over, and then some real serious damage in chip stocks like Micron, AMAT. You're starting to see some real serious selling moves. And I mean, like some of these chip stocks were near their 52 low, but like for like the Facebooks and the Googles, you're really starting to see some escalating selling. Uh, but over the past year, these tips have really created some fantastic buying opportunities. And when the sell-offs do happen, if you have some dry powder, they really are some great opportunities to get long names that either A, that sold out higher, or B, that you've been wanting to get into and haven't been able to. So really the question is, when stuff pulls back, it's like, what names do you go after? And the way we like to play swings and plan like the trades going forward is uh, we like kind of like two things. So we focus on recent earnings, and then we focus on upcoming earnings or upcoming news. So what that means is, we'll go back to the SPY. So what that means is we really want to focus on stocks that had great recent reports, or just reported like great earnings and have sold off after. And then for the upcoming, we want to focus on stocks that will have news in like the near future. Uh, upcoming earnings, upcoming analyst days, upcoming drug data, stuff like that. So like going back to the first, so the reason we want to focus on great earnings is uh, you want you want to be in top names that are pulling back, for the first time after good earnings, because those are where you would assume the buyers would be most aggressive into the weakness. So we want top performing tech names, top performing software stocks that are pulling back to keep moving averages. So I'll pull up. I mean, Amazon's a prime candidate right here. So you want a top performing name that's pulling back to moving averages for the first time, because there's basically like the buy and demand is obvious. And like the dips have tended to be shallow and bounce at these moving averages. So like you want to stick with like these top performing names. I you know Obviously, like Amazon's come a long way, but as long as it keeps holding these higher moving averages, I mean, there's really no reason to expect the trend not to continue. So, it had great earnings. It's run a lot, but this is basically the first test of the 20 days since the end of July. So it's like a name you want to stick with, like the top names in the top sectors that are acting the strongest, that are giving like the first dips. So Amazon, software stocks have been incredible. Uh, like the Salesforces of the world pulling back after decent earnings. These are offering opportunities that don't come around very often. CyberArk is one that is one that is already an open position in, but I mean it kind of follows the same pattern. A top name that had gapped here on earnings has really been like a nice steady trend. I mean it's actually up today, even during like the tech weakness, which is like a great sign of relative strength. But overall, I mean, like these are the names you want to go to, like the ones that are pulling back to moving average support for really like the first time since like great earnings. You could throw FTNT was another one we were in. You could throw that into the mix as well. So tech we talked about, software stocks, med tech. Healthcare has been strong. I mean, there's pockets within healthcare. So some of like the med tech specifically. So Medtronic was one that we just opened, but you can see really following like a very similar pattern, like strong earnings, pulling back to moving average, higher moving average support for the first time. Like I mean, this one too is actually up today as well. I mean, like it's just showing you that there's still demand. I mean, like these are top names that are pulling back for the first time, and these are the kind of the plays you want to go after. So you got software, tech, med tech, retail, obviously. XRT is pulling back a little bit, but retail's hanging around the highs. Target, top name, still not really budging. I mean, this one's higher today. Like these are like the stocks you want to go to. Throw Walmart into the mix, pulling back, but still like a top name that's pulling into moving average support. So like those couple areas, like those couple sectors, are really what we're going to be focused on for swings. Um, the pullbacks are attractive opportunities for maybe like swings like a month to 2 months out. I mean, depending on like the individual setup and what the options look like. So also, so in addition to those stocks pulling back that just had great earnings, we want to focus on stocks that have upcoming earnings or some sort of major news announcement coming up. And the reason for that is excitement and interest usually builds into events. Especially if it's earnings. If the stock had great earnings last quarter, then usually you'll see buying into the report. Or if it's a highly anticipated drug release, you'll see people start to kind of bid stuff up into or like even like an analyst day. You'll start to see some like interest into like those types of events. So looking ahead on the calendar, September is a little bit lighter. I mean, we're kind of getting towards like the tail end of retail earnings. Obviously, most of like the major earnings releases have passed, in by the mid of August, but you still have like some big tech names. So Adobe hasn't reported yet. Oracle hasn't reported yet. Uh, those are a couple names to watch. Micron, it's kind of destroyed, but I mean that they still haven't reported yet. So like these will be some names on the radar. Micron, we're a little bit uh, might be a little bit more risk averse on that one, just because of the overall action. But also banks are coming up. So once the calendar flips over to October, which it's the beginning of September, so we still got some time. But I mean, game planning ahead. Uh, Usually, like the banks kind of kick off earnings every quarter. So basically once October rolls around, you're going to get the bank earnings. So really kind of focused on banks, which actually are hanging around pretty well, all things considered. I mean, you can see the XLF hanging near the top of its couple month range above moving average support. We've been watching Bank of America and Citi. So we really want to focus on some stocks that have upcoming news, just because there'll be more interest. Option activity should be a little bit heavier, which we always love. We want to see option positioning. We want to see flow. it's just, when you get dips like this, you start to see the smart money step in and act. And I mean, it can be really great, really, really great like tells on what they're looking at, what they're doing. Just because when things are in trends, it's just kind of like steady. People are just riding their positions. But when you actually get like pullbacks, it's really great to see, where people start putting all their money to work. And, we suspect that, you're going to see it, tech, software, some med tech, retail, obviously financials. So, going forward, so for the next couple weeks, for the swing candidates, I mean, these are going to be kind of like the names that we're focused on, just because of the recent news and upcoming news. Obviously, there'll be individual setups for earnings and individual stock specific setups outside of like these sectors. But just in terms of in terms of how we're approaching swing candidates over the next few weeks, I mean, this kind of like summarizes about as succinctly as possible. So, as always, we love to hear from you guys. Please reach out, questions, comments. If you guys want to hear anything in these Facebook Live videos, please give us a heads up, and we'll try to address that. So have a fantastic trading day, and I'll talk to you soon.